Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tropic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Friday, November 22nd. Happy Friday, everybody. What a nice way to end the week. A lot of green on the screen there, and that's basically what I just want to illustrate with this screen. I'm not going to go over too much of the nitty-gritty for today, other than this was the second day in a row that we've really seen breadth really strong. It was a plus 77% up volume day. I think yesterday was in the 70s as well. So, look at all the green. So it's nice to see so many areas come up and outperform. Crypto stocks were once again very strong today. Another just quick observation was that the VIX really melted today. The VIX was really staying heightened. I think earlier in the week we got close to like around I think we got in the 18 area or 19 area, was it? I'm going from memory, but we're all of a sudden we're back down to about the 15 handle in the VIX. So, that was kind of staying high. I think some of the geopolitical concerns caused the market to dip a little bit intraday, which by the way, like gave some really good tradable opportunities because another theme I had like three or four themes this week. One in the beginning of the week was the bend and don't break. I mean, we saw the indices basically not do much in terms of the beginning of the week, explore some ranges, and then meanwhile, strong names were doing very well. Strong earnings names were continuing to power higher. So that's always important, by the way. Looking under the hood, obviously the market is made up of stocks. So when you start to see, higher quality stocks, I view the higher quality stocks as names that had good earnings. When I see them continuing to move higher or dip into their 20-day moving average and then begin to turn back up, I view that as a very favorable market, even though the indices were just kind of churning a little bit in the beginning of this week. So before I mention risk disclaimer in front of you, everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. I will. We are going to have a Black Friday sale, so I'll have that for you guys possibly over the weekend. We'll see if I can get that to you guys, but we go over much more detail in the trading room, and I will basically give updates during the day about what I'm doing and what I think is going on with the markets and where I'm looking to capitalize on the markets. But as I've said during this week, like another theme I'm just kind of bringing back up here is that my job. Have felt as a trader and an investor too, is just basically be on the right side of the market and um, let the market kind of speak to you, whether or not there's some good opportunities on the tape. Do your homework, find some trading setups, find some things that might potentially move, make adjustments, be nimble, because even though I put together a pretty comprehensive watch list about where I think things are going to go, I adjust that watch list as the week goes on because the market is going to obviously change, right? Stay in the stocks and the indices that are continuing to go from to go towards the upper right, or I should say this way, I guess. And if you can see the camera, and avoid the names that are showing relative weakness. Right? Don't mess with those names until they start acting better. My job is not to outsmart the market. It is, of course, to try to be clever, but I'm not here to outsmart the market. I'm here to take advantage of what the market is giving me. All right. So again, I've been trying to give a little bit more of these messages in these videos. And this obviously this month, and when we look at the performance for this month in terms of sectors, and you can kind of just see here. Right. We've had a very good month, and November is living up to the hype of it's a very strong seasonal month. So, that's a good thing. And, it's good that, we've got so many areas that are participating very well. Crypto. And so this is month to date, by the way, even though we've got one more week to go. Next week is a holiday shortened week, but, obviously the cryptos have been a huge story this month. And, And I've tried to take advantage of that as much as possible. I actually sold in my trading account. I sold even though before Bitcoin has hit 100,000. I took profits and I was long IBIT and had a really nice profit. But there's a number of other things that have been going on. The software stocks, super strong. The banks, which I view as have been market leaders. We talked about earlier in our Q&A session that last week when the market was pulling back, the financials were not. Usually that is very much symbolic of market leadership. And you've got several groups, going again back up to software. Software has had an amazing month. And it's not by accident. A lot of the software earnings have been pretty tremendous. We've seen name after name come out and beat expectations. And all of these go into our earnings list. It's very important. That is where I typically look for opportunities, compiling a strong earnings list and then looking at those names, as they digest and begin to head back up. So very strong. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I think that's 7 groups that are over, some of them overlap a little bit, but 7 groups, I believe, over 10% for the month. So that's a huge month. Yeah. Banks are in there twice, for example, regional banks and all banks. But look at the energy stocks. I've been talking about the energy stocks, and I know they're not the most exciting things out there. But look at OIH is up 12% this month. That's not too far away from what software is doing. So there's been some good opportunities there. I've added some energy exposure, added XOP. I've got Exxon in long in my trend account. FTI is another name that I added, but I think there's something going on there, and nice strength there. And even the XLE, which is a bit slower moving, where did I see XLE? It's still is up 10% for the month, right? So that's I think that's a pretty surprise, and that's why I put out these types of numbers so that you can find some surprises of what's going on, because sometimes it's different than what you expect, right? And then we've got the relative. I got some questions today in the Q&A about healthcare. Yeah, I mean, not just besides, like, I think, people are talking about healthcare because of, the new administration and what they're going to be doing. But really, healthcare has been showing relative weakness now for, I think a couple months, right? There hasn't been a lot going on there. There's some bright spots, of course. There's always some bright spots in every group. But yeah. So anyway, that's what we've got so far. I'm also going to just let's talk about the indices. I did something a little bit different here. I put them all into one panel, which I think that you can see. On the top left, you've got SPY. So, I talked about how we kind of were churning a little bit and exploring the range, but notice how we stayed above the value area for the month. I viewed that as positive, that we were just kind of hanging in there. Here's the one that doesn't it's fine. Again, there's nothing wrong with this, but it just hasn't bounced back as much, and that's the Qs. And my belief on that, and I've kind of said this a few times now, but I think really the bigger tech names are acting as a source of funds, some profit taking. Remember that, names like Microsoft, Google, Apple as well. There's nothing wrong with these names, and there's nothing wrong if you're long these names, in my opinion. But I do think that they are they investors will come back to them when I think volatility increases, because they are very much safety type plays too. They're holding a lot of cash. But in any event, right now, the price, the investors are going into some risky areas in the market. Take, for example, like the pullback that we saw in IWM last week, right? This does not even get to the top of the value area. So notice the bounce, and this outperformed this week. The Dow, which I also look at too, the Dow is basically back to those highs. But you could see, I think it's a very good after, we saw a couple days of sell-off last week. It was actually more than a couple days for IWM. But look to see which groups and what indices have returned to new highs. I'm just going to add a couple things in here, which I think are in this bottom right panel, but look at the mid caps, right? The mid caps are at new highs, right? So that's the mid caps. I also like to look at these micro caps, which had a very nice day today, right? And they made a nice bounce off the top of the value area. And then one more so that you can kind of compare this a little bit with the top left. So SPY market cap weighted versus the same stocks but equally weighted. And look at this, right? So again, it just kind of gives you a sense of breadth and perhaps those names that are top heavy right now. Remember, going back to it's probably the beginning of the year when people were like, "Oh, it's only 7 stocks that are powering the market." You don't hear that anymore, right? Because it's not the case right now. There's a big catch-up play that's going on in stocks. I want to show just a couple other screens, and I'll do that really quickly. Just gonna All right, so now we're going to talk tech for a minute. So tech, right, and tech is important. It's by far the largest weight in the S&P. It's almost 30% of the S&P. So we're going to look at, first of all, this is the XLK ETF, right? So market cap weighted technology, right? And notice, what this is doing. There's nothing wrong with this chart per se. It's in an uptrend, but it is not broken out to new highs, and it stalled back in the beginning of the month at your previous highs all the way back in July. Right now, let's break it apart. Let's take a look at what's in tech, for example. Okay, so the right, this is the semiconductors. When the semiconductors get a lot of attention, right? But I think more people have begun to realize that the semiconductors have kind of lost their way a little bit. Again, it's not a chart that necessarily is trending down, but it's just consolidating and it's taking its time. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with this. We'll watch and and this is what, again, just taking what the market is giving us right now. And the market is telling us right now that semiconductors are not, they're not the hot place that they are right now, regardless of how much attention, right, media attention, NVIDIA gets and, a couple of the other semiconductors. So you just kind of have to wait and be patient because this market, we are in a bull market and it's in a bull market that shows rotation from time to time. The next one to go down to look at is the next one in the bottom right. Again, there's nothing, this is not bad either. This is CIBR. This is your cybersecurity stocks, right? They're in an uptrend. They're moving higher. They haven't taken out the highs from where they were, but again, I don't think that there's anything wrong with this. Now, take a look at what's on the bottom left, right? So this is your software. Now, we talked about the performance that we've seen in November, but I think really what's going on here is earnings is the catalyst, and this is the group to be in right now. Again, it's probably a bit extended right now. It did make a fresh new high today, but this is where the very nice strength is in this market. I want to examine just a couple other quick charts. All right, just a couple other observations, and these are a little bit different because they don't all go together. But top left, IBD, this is the IBD 50 list and kind of like a really good gauge of momentum stocks. Notice that this is at new highs. We have not seen this group outperform like this in a while. And I think if we draw this out a little bit further and we bring up the weekly chart of this, you're going to see what I mean, right? This is nowhere near all-time highs, but is starting to kind of pick up the pace here a little bit. So if you look at this chart, right, and I think this is a very good lesson for so first of all, how downtrends happen and how downtrends get resolved. And notice that once we kind of hit 2022, it began to kind of base, still wasn't showing any major outperformance. So really, this is the first time that this is starting to do something. And so different, very different to see the IBD names break higher like this. So at this year's highs, but not at nowhere near all-time highs. So again, it's a bit of a catch up and a lot of names are doing this. And that's why we want to pay attention, to some names that when you zoom in a little bit and just look at the year, right, they could have a lot more to go before they get to new highs. We've been going over Datadog. Like that's a very good chart to kind of go over because, that's exactly the case of something like this. This is not at anywhere near, well, we're getting closer with the weekly candle that we had today, but that's a very nice move and you're starting to see that play out. Now, again, notice no resistance here for the year and but you're going to eventually hit some. but I think this has a ways to go. Just to kind of round things out, this is also the ARK Innovation ETF. I generally don't do anything with this group because I don't like how they execute their trades personally. I think it could be managed a lot better. That's my critique. And there's many other things for me out there to trade. So, we all have judgments on different things. Two other groups. Smaller groups. This is obviously what's been going on with cryptos. This is DAPP, right? So I'm just looking at this, and it's been a leader over the last month or so. So very strong performance. And then there's uranium stocks too, which I like as well. And I think this is another pocket of strength. I'm going to do one more of these really quickly. All right, so last one of these four chart views for you. These are four different sectors that I find interesting right now. Top left, financials. Again, I think that's our market leader right now. It may be a little bit slower how the financials move, but look at this breakout. And again, as I had mentioned in the beginning of this video, when the market was going down, XLF was not. So you've got your leadership there. Industrials, I've been made some attention about the industrials finding support coming back up. Bottom left here is consumer discretionary, also turning back up. And then also, I mentioned energy stocks is kind of a catch-up play. And I think that they look pretty decent here too, maybe looking at that VPOC at 156. I don't think I brought this up, and I'll end here. Again, I'm not going over single stocks in this video. I'm going to do that for members over the weekend. I hope to see you as a member. Here's just how this week broke out. Again, China continues to underperform. Transport, solar, not much going on there. Healthcare as well. Really nice performance. I've already mentioned energy stocks a couple times, but even the clean energy stocks did pretty well too. Also, biotech, retail is in there. How about this stock, by the way? RH. Bottom right here had a really nice day today. So again, some different groups starting to heat up and catch some momentum. I'll leave it there, guys. Have a great weekend. This was a wonderful week to trade. I hope you did well, and I hope you're going to relax a little bit and get away from the screens this weekend as well.